So, welcome to the next edition of Leadership in the Trenches, where we talk to leaders that are working with employees in a day-to-day environment where they're dealing with what the workforce looks like today. I'm joined with two rock stars today. I'm really lucky. I have Scott Luey, who is the General Manager of Community Safety and Wellness for Haldimand County. Welcome, Scott.
Good morning. Thank you. It's nice to see you.
Nice to see you. And then we have the movie star Jordan Sherlock, the executive director of the Niagara Industrial Association. He loves it when I say that, by the way, Scott. See his
Yeah,
face? I love it.
Yeah.
Uh,
Hi,
Guys,
Jordan.
thanks so much. Jordan, thank you for being here.
Thanks, guys.
So
Good to see you
this
both.
is this is the fifth in my series where I'm talking with leaders that do this for real life. This isn't theory-based stuff. Um, what I love about the two of you being on today is it's really different perspectives. So, Jordan, you've been a president of an organization, a couple of organizations. And also, you're now the executive director of a big association where you're dealing with all kinds of businesses. So you have a really unique perspective. And Scott, you've been the CAO of a municipality and a general manager of a municipality, and you've had teams. I think you were saying earlier, your team in the summer at full peak is close to 800 people.
Yeah, that's right. Volunteer firefighters, EMS workers, and summer recreation students, nurses at the long-term care home. It just grows to that huge number.
Nice. So just a small team.
You got me
Yeah,
beat,
just a
Scott.
bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a really unique talk today to hear the different perspectives. So the first question is leadership today is we have multiple generations, right? So we have Gen Z coming into the workforce. We still have boomers clinging on to their roles, and then we got my generation, the angry generation, Gen X, and we have millennials in there. What types of challenges are you seeing with leaders dealing with these multiple generations? Who'd like to jump on that first?
Yeah, I can jump
Scott's
in.
got 800 people across like four generations. So I'm interested.
Sure. I do have a little bit of insight. I appreciate that. It's the first time in history, really, that five generations of workers have been in the workplace at the same time. So you have, folks who typically in the past would have been subject to mandatory retirement or are still working in their golden years, and you have teenagers coming in and working their first sort of jobs. And I think it's wrong to generalize about groups of people and say that and sort of say they're homogenous, but trends emerge, right?
Yeah.
And I think the most important thing for supervisors is realizing that those different generations are typically motivated by different sort of influences. So there is a group of people that would do what their boss said, no matter, you say jump, I say how high. And then there's another group of people out there that have been raised to question authority, sort of, I will do it if you make it worth my while, or if you tell me the reason why, or what's the big picture, or how is society going to be improved if I do it? And having this sort of soft touch to navigate those different needs, I think is a skill. It's the skill of the future. It's the skill that every supervisor and manager worth his or her salt is going to have to have.
Excellent. Thank you, Scott. Jordan, what are you hearing from the teams you're working with, as well as your own experience on this?
Yeah, similar thoughts to Scott. I think the term I use is having an a la carte approach.
Mhm.
We work with a lot of small businesses, excuse me, a lot of family businesses, multi-generational companies here in Niagara. These companies, the continuity that they've had and how they've operated has largely been the same for decades. You can't do that anymore. So you have to have that open mind, but also that approach that every employee is a little bit different. Your approach cannot just be, paintbrush across every employee. I'm going to treat this person the same as this person. And I think that's challenging, especially for those, again, those multi-generational companies to be flexible and to do things or think about things that maybe you've never considered in the past in terms of your approach. But you just have to. You have no choice. To Scott's point, the person who is going to want some additional explanation or guidance in terms of being instructed to do a task or something like that, um, they're going to need that extra hand holding as opposed to just do it because I told you to do it. So I think the a la carte thing's important. I think for, something I see again a lot if we're talking about kind of I don't want to date anybody, but some of the aging ownership workforce that's out there in the boomers and some Gen X's is there is such an opportunity to take advantage of some of the technological advancements that are out there. And a lot of these folks don't have the patience or desire to learn about AI and robotics and some of the other things that are out there that we hear about all the time. Leverage those younger generations, those Gen Zs, those millennials, to tap into what they know and what they've grown up with. It's ingrained in a lot of these younger people, and they can kind of hit the ground running and bring that into your organization immediately. Again, there's sometimes resistance, I think, to that, technology. Like, I'm not interested in that stuff. We've always done it this way. Comments like that I hear a lot, and some of these younger folks are crackerjacks with these kinds of things, and they're going to have to come into your business at some point. And I think, the last thing I'll say is kind of, it's in line with that technological piece or where the world is going today in the competitive global marketplace that we operate in. But I think there's a place for balancing modern and kind of new age thinking with respect to technology and just new ways of doing things, social and environmental issues that come into the workplace today, but also some of those, call them traditional leadership styles. You show up on time, you work hard. We have to meet in person to have discussions about important things. Like, I think there's a good balance there somewhere.
Yes.
Finding that balance is tricky.
So along that line, Jordan, do you think you said I don't have time for that. Do you think it's a time thing, or do you think sometimes it's a fear thing of embracing the technology as it relates to a leadership development?
I think it's both. I mean, we'll probably get into this topic a little bit later, but time is just for everybody. It is more and more of a premium every single day, and I always think about being somebody who worked in small private businesses my whole career. Basically, ROI is critical. If I'm going to invest hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars into of my own money into capital or into some new investment, I need to know when I'm getting a return on that. So I think that's more. We talk about the word fear often. Oh, people are afraid of new technologies and some of the. I don't know that it's fear proper. I think it's show me the money. And if I'm approaching retirement age or thinking of divesting, I need to understand completely what I'm getting myself into before I go making huge investments. And I think that understanding is something that is just a little foggier than 40 years ago. It was like, yeah, if I buy that piece of land, I can kind of do some math in my head and figure out what kind of value I'm going to get out of that.
Sure.
Determining a value or doing an assessment like that from an ROI standpoint on a new piece of technology or a piece of software is not as black and white maybe as it used to be. So, but this is why I say leverage these younger people. You don't have to learn and understand
Right.
These concepts and these new innovations that are out there. Bring good people in who already understand them and can kind of, build the model out for you, and then you've got something to evaluate.
So did you want to jump in, Scott, with that?
I think it's super interesting. Jordan's point there, and the first point he made when he answered the question is because his association, your association, Jordan, is a really broad swath of the industry. Like, you've got small companies where a person, usually a single person, had a product or a skill that they, started in the basement, got too
Yeah.
big for the basement, they moved to the garage, got too big for the garage, and they moved to one small unit in the industrial park. And now there's 100 or 150 or 200 employees. And that kind of rapid growth sometimes means you need to bring on experts, because you were the expert at the product that you made or the skill that you had, but you're not an expert in running a corporation. But then you also have, multi-location, huge corporations that just drop down their Niagara office
Yeah.
and hit the ground almost fully built out, right? So I think that's a perspective of did you grow to the size you are, or did you sort of start with a template? And it must be very interesting for your members. And you sort of have to provide, you kind of have to be everything to everyone, right? As the NIA.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We talk about meeting people where they're at all the time. To some of our older owners, being innovative is having a smartphone. Oh,
Yes.
I just figured out how to use FaceTime last week, and that's great. Others are way further down the line. So when we talk about, building innovation or advanced manufacturing or Internet of Things or manufacturing 4.0, all these terms that are out there, to your point, Scott, those terms mean something different for every organization, at least in our world.
And technical ability too, right? So yeah,
Yeah.
I always hear, oh, they don't make them like they used to. These used to be steel and now they're aluminum. These used to not have microchips and now they do have microchips. Well, I mean, that might mean things are more expensive to fix, but it doesn't mean that they're not more effective or more efficient. And, I think of something as easy as 3D printing. Um, if you can't fit a drill into a space, you can't fabricate something in the traditional way. But 3D printing sort of bypasses, like just jumps right over that barrier, right? So, and maybe it's not generational, but there's different levels of technical ability out there. I think you need to surround yourself with experts if you're not going to bring the expertise yourself.
So Scott, let's stay on the generational thing. And one of the issues I run into a ton is people being promoted over the years with no training or formal education in leading, and they're typically promoted because of their technical ability, which we were just chatting about. And now they've got a team of 10 people, and there's maybe a mutiny on board because the younger generation is not connecting with this guy in his 50s who's like, hey, just come on, get this done. This is how you do it. Have you run into that internal promotion uh, generation where people move up the ladder and they're not really prepared to lead as their team gets bigger or more complex or more sophisticated?
Yeah, that's brilliant. I'm glad you brought that up. And so I'm from the government, and we have this fun thing called the Peter Principle.
And
And the
I'm here
Peter
to help.
Principle, yeah, Ronald Reagan, right? The Peter Principle. I won't get too deep into it, but if you haven't heard of it, your viewers Google it. It's an interesting sort of axiom. 25 years ago, the very start of my municipal career, I remember being at a conference, and one of the big companies down in Hamilton on the harbor was presenting a labor talk. And they sort of, I'll tell the story very quickly. The lament was, we have this person, he's running his machine in the steel mill, and he's so good, he's more productive, he's faster, he never misses a shift, and he's just a model employee. You know what? Let's make him the supervisor. So, okay, now he's the supervisor and he's running his machine a little bit, but he's also helping other people and everything else. And well, let's make him the floor manager or whatever the promotion is. And he's getting farther and farther away from his number one passion, and number two, um, the sort of the skill that he
His
has.
ability. Yeah.
And then the person who's the speaker at the conference is saying, and we also never trained him to supervise people. So he was kind of lost as a supervisor. So it wasn't productive. They sort of broke his heart by taking him off his machine, and broke his heart by, or everyone else's heart, by making this untrained, unskilled person their supervisor. And I think, the moral of the story is you have to take somebody who sort of shows initiative and shows skills and abilities in their field, but you also have to develop them for the position that you're going to have. And in the municipal world, I'll hand it over to Jordan here in a second because I would love to hear his perspective. But in the government world here, no matter what your skill is, office, planner, building inspector, engineer, or exterior worker, cutting grass, writing parking tickets, trimming trees, and so on, great jobs. Um, you have to keep your skills and abilities. You have to train and develop for the job you have. Chainsaw training, you need a certificate every year or two, and so on. But I think we also need to identify that person as on an arc for future leadership and say, hey, if you're going to do this in 2 years, 5 years, 8 years, let's get you trained now. You're an emerging leader in an organization. Let's get you trained now so you're not lost. The one other thing I will say is there's a complication, and the complication is if you're promoted internally in an organization, you usually become the boss of the people you used to sit at the lunch table with. So all of a sudden it's like, oh, this is great. Julie's our boss. We're going to get Julie to give us time off and we're going to get Julie to go easy on us and yada, yada, yada. But so you have to sort of earn people's respect, not just as their colleague who was eating lunch with them, but now as sort of their that manager worker relationship. So it's
Yeah.
kind of those are the issues as I see them. Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. Jordan, what are your thoughts on that internal promotion? It happens everywhere. I mean,
Yeah,
you had it at your own companies that you run.
we all know those Julies, don't we, Scott? Yeah, it's a tough go. To to piggyback on something Scott said towards the end there, I think the additional benefit going back to some of the multi-generational challenges we have in the workplace today, if you start that preparation early, if you've identified somebody early and you start to prepare them, younger people, especially today, want a career path. They want to be shown a path.
Mhm.
They don't want to just come in and, they want to be running the company in 3 years. So if you don't illustrate or paint a picture of what a true career path for them might look like, and it might not even be with your own organization, quite frankly, which I'm personally okay with. But if you don't give them something to kind of strive for, look forward to, excuse me, hopeful about, it makes it a much tougher
Yes.
slog. I think, just going back to the original question, you know, a lot of small business owners are desperate these days. We've got, the pool just isn't there in terms of volume compared to what it used to be. And then within what is available, the skill set or the necessary skill set might just not be there in
Yeah.
terms of, I'm looking for somebody that's polished today and I don't have that. So you start to, you can lose sight of what you're actually trying to do when you become desperate like that. And
Yeah.
a path that, the other thing I was just quickly to add on to that is, like, you also don't have, what is a senior employee anymore? The days of the 20-year, 25-year career person with one company, those days are over. So, before, where you might be able to look and say, wow, this person's been here 12 years, this person 18, holy smokes, I've got a bunch of decisions to make. Now it's kind of like, who's been here for 3 years that knows where the bathroom is. And again, that can maybe cloud our decision making to just making the best of what we have. But something that I am growing more and more fond of, at least conceptually, is this concept of kind of fractional work. Um, yes, we're going to look to automation, and yes, we're looking to new Canadians and all kinds of ways to maybe backfill some of the labor shortages that we have. That's great, but there are also, and platforms like this, and thank you COVID, I guess, but we've created ourselves a world in which we can get work done remotely, we can get work done more efficiently, and we might not have to do it ourselves. So you now have fractional CFOs, CMOs, go down the list, almost any kind of cohort you can think of. There's somebody out there that can kind of fit into your business, be strategic with you, as well as operational. And you don't have to hire a full-time person and worry about, oh man, when Mary retires as our CFO, she's been our bookkeeper for 38 years and she does all these things. We don't even know how her filing system works. Oh my God. Don't worry about it. Just, contact Joe Blow's CFO consulting
Mhm.
services, and they might be able to help you. So there are other kind of workarounds, I think, coming online more and more, where we're not going to have to look internally and say, I'm forced to find the best person to promote into a role that maybe they're not capable of doing.
Yeah, I think that those are all great points, Larry. I hope I can jump in. I
Yes,
want to
please.
zero in on the one about if they leave our organization, and that's such an important one because there's the old joke, what if we train our staff and they leave? Well, and then the HR person responds, well, what if we don't and they stay? So developing staff is super, super important. Um, for us, it's a retention tool too. And I didn't say that in my first comments, but if you don't see that there's a career trajectory, like Jordan said, you start to look, I think, outwards. My next step up the sort of corporate ladder is going to be out of this corporation. So it's definitely a retention tool. And to be honest with you, I'm not scared to train somebody and with the chance that I might lose them. And I sort of think about Larry, you'll understand this, the NFL coaching tree. So you used to say they put up on the screen on the TV, here's Bill Walsh, here's all his assistants who became head coaches elsewhere. Here's all their assistants who became assistants elsewhere. And I think, if I've got a fire chief in Kingston who used to work for me and a road supervisor in, I don't know, Tilsonburg who used to work for me, that's a mark of success of the organization, not a mark of failure that we lost employees. It means we're developing people who are suitable all over Ontario, right?
100%.
Absolutely.
And that also comes into the promotion issue that I hear all the time, but the other one is succession planning.
Yes.
As the retirement numbers now are, like Jordan mentioned, people are working longer, you're right, but still people are retiring at a faster rate now and filling that bottom end in. One thing I look at is all jobs have sort of three components. This is how I see the world anyway. The technical part of your job,
Mhm.
that you need your experience and knowledge for, the admin part of your job, which is about organization, workflow, process, and then the people side of your job. And most of the training I witness is on the technical and the admin side. That's where we get tons and tons of training. And it's the people side that's usually the one that's like, oh yeah, let's send the guy to a seminar in Toronto for a couple hours. Now you're a leader, go get them, right?
Yeah.
So I think it has to be equally trained. So along that line, and Scott, we'll start with you. What have you done, or what do you recommend as additional things that you can do to develop leaders, from training to mentoring? Like what are some of the stuff you've been part of? And then Jordan will jump in with what you're witnessing out there too.
Sure. Well, I'll tell you what we do here in Haldimand County, but I'll start with what I recommend. What I recommend is, it's really hard sometimes to think this. Remember that it's not what do you call it? A binary, like a one-time training. Like you're starting on February 10th. We're going to train you on February 8th. That's all through your career. You need to develop those leadership skills, supervisory skills, even just emotional intelligence all through your career. So, but in Haldimand County specifically, we try to identify, sort of tap, people emerge, people sort of rise to the top. Sometimes we tap someone on the shoulder and say, hey, we look at you as an emerging leader in our municipality. And we really have the formal tools, and there are informal tools out there too, right? But the formal tools are three sort of programs that we have. One is through Mohawk College. We call it Future Leaders. And it's actually classroom learning, leadership. You're watching a slide deck, but there's also some practical examples. We try to develop scenario-based training, and it's a program that eventually you graduate from. You get a nice Mohawk College certificate, and hopefully provides you with the skills to at least get started on your leadership journey and knowing you have to sharpen more skills. And the second one is you. We bring you in here. We have a long-standing program with you, I think over 5 years, where we sort of in a classroom setting, in a sort of I've worked with you in the past at other municipalities, but sort of like a group learning, collaborative approach, sharpen some skills together and really teach our sort of future leaders and current leaders in a setting where they can share with each other. And then the third one is a little bit more informal. And we have a great manager here who came to us from a bigger city, the city of Hamilton, and that's Dan McKinnon. And Dan McKinnon is a leadership book encyclopedia. Like Larry, the bookshelf in his office would make you jealous, I'm sure.
I'll have to
So
stop by later.
yeah, yeah. So he does what we call tailgate talks. And
Oh,
again, it's an emerging leader situation. And he'll bring in other leaders from the organization. So I haven't yet, but I might present to the group one day. And different departments can nominate people in the group. And it's basically, for the most part, based on the book Good to Great. I'm sure you know the book Good to Great. And really just sort of less formal than the college or your program, but more congenial and collaborative and comfortable, I guess. So that's the sort of programs we do. But not enough can be said too about the informal. We just had 70 people in a room on Thursday, and just sort of part of it was shooting the breeze, like talking about what's going on, what's the environment that we're working in, what's the external environment that the county operates in, and just almost a meeting of the minds, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
those are the tools that we put in place here.
You know what? It's taking away the mystique of leadership. Like it's this thing only. It
Hmm.
used to be Jack Welch was the guy, and some other, these big names from these big corporations, and it's like leadership's attached to action, not title. I know
Yes.
lots of guys with big fancy titles that couldn't lead themselves out of a wet paper bag. Like they're useless. But then you have the rank and file staff that are leading every day with their actions. And the other thing, Scott, is, and thanks for the plug. I appreciate that. I'll drop $5 off at your office later too when I see you.
Larry, you told me you wrote Good to Great. Is that not true?
No, I didn't say I
Oh,
wrote it. I said I
oh,
should have
sorry.
wrote
Okay.
it.
Sorry.
uh, but Scott, I was going to say is the growth mindset that Haldeman has, right? Everybody's growing. I love that. I love that input. Jordan, what are you seeing? Because I love the fact that you have access to so many different companies and so many different things that they're doing to develop their leaders.
Yeah. Well, I agree with all of the things that Scott said, and I'll kind of add one to that. Obviously, as an industry association, I'm a big network guy. I think if you had asked me 25 years ago when I was in university, what's more important, developing a network or learning tons and tons of technical skills, I would have told you technical skills all day long. Totally, total opposite now. Your network is everything. And I think, again, if we're going back to this generational conversation, I think the internet especially has in many ways, destroyed some of the good, what I would call good networking opportunities
Yeah.
that used to exist, that taught you things. If when I was, a young guy kind of growing up in business and I had a question or I didn't understand something, I usually went and talked to somebody more senior than me and said, what the hell's going on here? Or like, what does this mean? Or what does this term mean? Or what have you seen in the past? And there was so much value in those conversations because they often led to more than just, a simple answer to my question. Now I'm probably, if I was that same, 25-year-old, I'm probably just going to hit up Chat GPT because it's quicker and I'm going to get a more, comprehensive answer. Or I watch some guy on TikTok or my Instagram stream, and he's the expert out there on leadership, and
Yeah.
whatever he says goes. And you're kind of not checking yourself necessarily or testing yourself within your day to day and kind of localized community, both in your workplace and more broadly. So that's a long way of saying I'm big on networking. I'm big on young people getting out there and learning how to have conversations and to tap into some of the more senior, wiser folks out there who have been down the path, the beaten path many times. Um, to me, that's how you create leaders.
Yeah.
It really is. The
That's
books are
right.
great too. And that's another thing. I mean, I used to be a book junkie with these, probably most of those books on Larry's shelf back there at some point
Yeah.
went through. I don't necessarily know that leaders today are, does anyone read anymore? Like, I don't know. I don't know if I don't get the sense like I used to, where most leaders I would chat with, it's like, hey, did you read, Good to Great, or have you read Start with Why lately? And you chat about the book, and I don't have those conversations much anymore. So
Yeah.
I think that mentorship piece is so, I wish I would have thought of that one. That's a good, like
add it to the
attaching yourself to a mentor, finding a mentor who you can work with really well. And sometimes that doesn't sounds like an awkward conversation. Hey, sir, will you be my mentor? Hey, man, will you be my mentor? I don't think the people who I consider a mentor to me have ever had a conversation with me where we agreed, like we shook on it, where you are my mentor and
yeah,
I'm
no,
it sort of
no,
develops informally. But the other thing I think is groups within the group, and not
Mhm.
to exclude people, but to sort of share an experience, female leaders, young leaders, leaders from a different industry. And I know, Larry, you used to do, I don't know the formal name of it, some breakfast meetings and get people together, four or five around a table and sort of just share an experience, right? And sometimes I think that your mentor doesn't necessarily have to be in a senior role or senior in years, they could be someone who is sort of in your peer group.
100%.
Absolutely.
Age has nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
And not to talk about my stuff, but since you brought it up, Scott, but in my class, the thing I love so much is the reflection part of it, where they're talking about, I give everyone an assignment and they come back and there's 10 or 12 people in a room and usually from different departments, which is great. And they're
Yeah.
sharing how they executed the homework and everyone's learning from each other.
Yeah.
Some of them are at the same level, some of them are more senior, but we're all sort of in this together. It's an amazing feeling.
Larry, since we're all plugging our own organizations here, I still to this day, with all NIA has been around for about 18 years now. With all of the growth that we've had, all of the new programming and events and initiatives that we've added, I still personally get the most value. Um, and now in my current role, the most, I guess, pride you could call it, from our in-person membership meetings. We just had one last week. There was about 85 people in the room. And you just scan the room and see the conversations that are happening, see the business cards changing hands, seeing that younger person chatting with maybe that more senior person, and you just go, stuff's happening here. Like good things are happening here, that you just can't get from doing some Google searches or talking with Chat GPT. It's not the same.
Yeah.
Great point. Um, I want to talk about culture and leadership for a minute. Culture is talked about so much, and 99% of the time when I ask somebody what culture is, they can't really explain it because it's this mysterious thing. But it's sort of the essence or the vibe of the organization. And what I've learned over the years is it's incredibly influenced by the leaders. And so, yes, it's also influenced by the workforce, but the leaders have a huge effect on culture. Um, how have you guys managed to integrate your leaders into the culture, or what kind of responsibilities do you put on your leaders to maintain or grow a culture? Jordan, we'll start with you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, critical. This one is huge, and I agree with you, Larry. I think it doesn't live with the leaders, but it starts with the leaders for sure. I think something I learned in part of my leadership journey was, and it took me some time, I guess, to understand that this was true. But when you're a leader, you are being watched like a hawk. Your staff, your employees, even if you don't see it outright, they are picking up on your vibes. They are picking up on your body language, your tone of voice, the look on your face. And that is just something you have to remember 24/7. And that consistency piece, that continuity where people know what to expect when you walk in the office in the morning, that's a skill that I learned, it's tough, but you have to understand how you present in, say, a boardroom with your top leadership team versus when you walk out onto the shop floor, into the general office space, or whatever. Um, so that's critical. I think, this one's cliche, but I believe that authenticity is important. Again, I think people can see through, oh, that person's putting on an act, or no, this is a consistent leader who is like this all the time. I know what to expect from them, and who they, present as with this group is the same as they present as with this other group. So that consistency part's important. And I think the biggest thing, and again, as in my career, I was always, Scott mentioned this earlier, and I agree 100%. I was always committed to helping a person's career path, regardless of where it was. If
Mm.
it was with the company that I was working for, that's fantastic. But I need to know where you want to be. If you're working as an admin assistant, but you always wanted to be a real estate agent or something, then it's not right for me to put the handcuffs on you and chain you to the desk and say, well, too bad you work for me, you're an admin assistant. You're not going to get the most out of that person, as opposed to, if they know that you have their best interest at heart and that you are truly motivated to get them to where they want to be in their career, then they're going to give you the best that they can give you while you have them available. That could be a year or 2 years. Maybe it ends up being 20, or maybe they have a change of heart. Um, but again, I think that that kind of ties back into that authenticity, where if folks understand that that's how you feel about your employees, they'll go through a brick wall for you.
That's excellent advice. Scott, what do you think about culture? How have you been able to integrate leaders into the maintaining it?
Yeah, and I think that we probably all have some experience or some knowledge or have a friend or colleague who worked at a place where the culture wasn't particularly strong. And I think there's examples, where this culture is not strong, where they try to force it almost. They describe the culture in a poster on the wall and say
Exactly.
everyone has to adopt the culture by October 31st or you're in trouble. When in fact it has to happen organically, I think. Like it has to, like the culture, you can't force a culture, I guess. And I think about myself, I've been fortunate that the municipalities that I've worked at, and this is my third one in 25 years, the sort of corporate culture has, or sorry, the corporate values have modeled my own values, and there could be a chicken egg problem there. I might have brought the values to the corporation in the strategic planning sort of exercise. So these are formal, adopted values, but I want my team, my leaders who are working with me to have to model those values. So I make sure that I demonstrate them at every opportunity. Um, and some of them, you know, integrity for sure. Do what you say you're going to do. I think I'm a golfer, right? Golf is one of the only sports where you call a penalty on yourself. And some people don't. Some people walk into the clubhouse at the end and say, I got all these pars, but in reality they didn't. But I'm the type of person who I'm going to do what I said I was going to do, keep my promises, and sort of even when no one's looking, continue to sort of act with integrity. One of the great quotes, I think it was, oh, now I'm off topic, super quick. Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg, great leadership book. Well, I know nobody reads books anymore, but there's an
I do.
audio version. You can listen to it in your car. So she gave, and I'm paraphrasing now in my own words, the Harvard Business School definition of leadership is having an impact on the people around you and having that impact last when you leave. So I want to go away for the weekend. I want my leaders to step into my role and sort of maintain
Mhm.
the integrity and the values that we have in place. Um, and I think the second thing is for me, I'm a big relationships guy. It's relationships and communication. And certainly on the communication side, you will know what I know, unless it's some confidential information from a confidential meeting, or it's HR information or personal information about another employee. If I know it, you know it. I don't hold anything back. I'm an open book, and I expect you to be the same way with me. Without that two-way street of communication, how can you hope to succeed, right? So
Great
I think,
point. Good point. I just jump on Scott when you said your culture is organically. My favorite line I like to say it's organically on purpose. So I'm purposely making it something, but we're still going to let it have some organic be in there. Last question, guys, and I want to be respectful of everyone's time. What's a piece of advice you'd give to somebody who is considering getting into leadership or who's new to leadership? Of what's one or two things you think they should really focus on right away? Scott, start with you.
sure. So for me in the government world, especially resilience, I don't expect you guys to let me cry on your shoulder, but like this might sound, a little bit hollow, but it's a tough time to be a government employee, a government worker. It's with social media, with populism out there, the Trump type politics. Um, some folks are under attack, and because there's a nameless, faceless, that's not John, my neighbor. That's not Jenny from church. That's the government that did a bad job of plowing the snow or emptying the garbage can on Main Street. I've seen people attacked on Facebook, have their personal information, their home address published on Facebook. These jobs are a little bit thankless, you know? Now, there are benefits to them too. It's great to help your community. Most people I've worked with in my different municipalities have lived in the community they work in, and there's a lot of pride in that work, you know? So resilience for sure. I think probably flexibility, sort of knowing that the same leadership approach doesn't work with every single person who works for you. Um, I remember Larry, you told me years ago, and I still use this to this day. There's a time to flip a table. So there's a time to wrap your arms around people, metaphorically speaking, and sort of have a kumbaya moment. But there's also a time to sort of say, "I'm serious. We've got to do this." And different people respond to different tactics or approaches differently. So I think that I would call it wisdom, if that makes sense, or at least the wisdom to know sort of which tool to use at what time. And then, so that's flexibility and resilience really are my two sort of things.
Those are great pieces of advice. And the flipping the table, you're right. Just to paraphrase my mom, she said, "Once in a while, you got to be a bitch," and she wasn't wrong, right?
That's,
Uh, Jordan, what are your two pieces of advice? Now you got to follow that
That's my new poster, by the way. My culture poster is going to be that phrase. I'm putting it
one.
up on the wall here. Scott had some fantastic points there. I think he's right when he said leadership is not for the faint of heart, man. Like
yeah.
I always think of the word servitude when I think of leadership, and I think it is that you're serving other people and you are sacrificing oftentimes a lot, because if you're a good leader, you should be taking the heat, when the going gets tough, and you should be giving out the credit when things are going well. And Scott used the phrase thankless job. Yeah, it can be thankless. It's lonely at the top, right? That's the saying. So you have to really prepare yourself, I think, if you want to become a good leader. I'll go back again to that. If you're a young leader or somebody who's kind of been put into an opportunity where you can become a leader, or you're going to become a leader, that mentorship piece is so critical to find good mentors. I've got a few in my back pocket that you know I wouldn't be where I am, literally, just because I knew I always kind of had that safety net there, that I could make a call or ask a dumb question or whatever. So critical. And then a phrase we've been using around here a lot recently, much like government, our manufacturing sector is very much under attack, and we've got some massive challenges here in Niagara with kind of navigating some of the geopolitical things going on, and in turn supply chain and trade challenges that there's no end in sight, quite frankly. So a lot of folks are going to kind of have their hair on fire for a little while here, and be in survival mode. But the phrase we've been using here, and I like it, is don't suffer in silence. Just because you're a leader, or you're running an organization or a piece of an organization, you don't have to lock yourself in your office and just rely on Google to answer your questions and to figure things out on your own and read 3,000 news articles. There are pathways to kind of sift through some of that stuff, and there are folks out there who are ready, willing, and able to lend a hand and give you some help. Some of it might cost you a few bucks, but it's an investment, I believe.
Yeah.
But some of it is free. And again, at the NIA, we're here to kind of be a bit of that extension of some of these small businesses challenges, and help them through. You don't have to suffer in silence. So for those leaders who feel that way, or feel helpless, or what have I gotten myself into, or how do I get out? There's a pathway out, and any leadership journey has its ups and downs.
Yeah.
Larry, it might have been you that sent me this. There's a great picture I've got somewhere in this mess, but it's a goofy stick person cartoon, and it's kind of like a stick guy down here, and there's a hill with a flag at the top, and it's like your goal, your plan, and then the next picture is reality, and that stick guy, suddenly there's like a chasm in front of him, and a fire volcano spilling down, and all this other stuff. So you know, that's how your leadership path is probably going to go.
100%.
But there's ways to strap in for that journey for sure.
Great answer. Thank you, Jordan. So, guys, I want to thank you both so much for your wisdom and your advice today. I'm sure the folks watching this are going to get a lot out of it. So, thank you to Scott Luey and to Jordan Sherlock for joining us. And hopefully, you guys will tune in for episode 6. And thanks for your time, everybody.
Thanks, Larry.
Pleasure,
Thanks.
guys. Thanks.